When the German Empire collapsed in the autumn of 1918, at once theories of conspiracy appeared to explain the sudden breakdown of the German army. One theory was that the German army had not been beaten in the battlefield, but was stabbed in the back by the mutinies of the navy and by the outbreak of the revolutions in Berlin. The legend was rooted in stereotypes developed during the war and was used to establish a psychological disposition, because it was so unfathomable to 1918. During the strikes of the ammunition workers in Berlin in January 1918, for example, the propaganda proclaimed that the front was victorious, but the home front was on the verge of breaking down. When General Erich Friedrich Wilhelm Ludendorff was about to recognize that the war was lost in September 1918, he put full blame of the defeat on the politicians in Berlin and asked them to sign the necessary armistice because he wanted nothing to do with it. Although Ludendorff's outburst of fury was not public for many years following the war, millions of Germans were convinced of a conspiracy theory. At the moment of surrender, it was difficult for ordinary Germans to recognize that the strategic situation was hopeless. The experience of defeat was not present in German society because the combat had not even reached German territory yet, and large parts of Eastern Europe were still occupied by Germany. Most Germans were aware of the worsening military situation, but many people, especially the bourgeoisie political camp, were convinced that after a couple of months, the whole situation might actually change yet again. At the same time, the breakdown of the Home Front became obvious, shaping the perception of many people because it was part of their everyday experience. In the autumn of 1918, the disintegration of German society had reached such a level, that the authoritarian Wilhelmian society and state was next to collapse, and it did. Immediately after the end of the war, a large variety and a huge variety of stab in the back legends, or Doopstube Liegenlagen din, appeared, but there was no consensus about who was to blame. Generals accused the parliament, the politicians, and even the government. The political and the Protestant clergy, who had been extremely nationalistic and nationalist during the war, lamented the general more decline and accused the socialists, the communists, and even the trade unions, and sometimes even the Jews, though, for their betrayal. For the conservative and the nationalistic Deutsches Nationale Volkspartei, or the German National People's Party, the legend fits perfectly into the political strategy for mass mobilization against this dreaded Weimar Republic. In 1918, the leadership of the Pan-German League decided to spearhead radical anti-Semitism and place full blame of the defeat for Germany on the Jews. All of these different interpretations of the causes of defeat played into two deep-rooted traditions in German political culture for the rest of the 20th century until they became East and West: anti-socialism and anti-Semitism. The communists did it, all the Jews did it. These legends became even more popular in the autumn of 1919 when Field Marshal Paul von Hindenburg was interrogated by the investigating committee for the parliament. He accused the socialists of having sabotaged his war from the very beginning until their defeat was inevitable. The leadership of the DNVP, or the Deutsches Nationalistische Volkspartei, used the stab in the back story and myth many times during election campaigns. Particularly in 1924, the party was able to win a growing support beyond their traditional nationalistic political camp. The attempt of the Democratic politicians to initiate a trial in Munich and to find what really happened in 1918 failed. Today, many historians agree that the stab in the back myth and legend destabilized the Weimar democracy to a very high degree and contributed to the rise of National Socialism, or the Nazi Party. The worst case of the political communication was not the aggressive controversy, but the breakdown of debate. And after 1924, the two political camps were not even able to communicate anymore. The right wing were convinced that the country had really been stabbed in the back, and the Democrats were left to discover that any attempt to clarify the events was hopeless. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something, and I hope I sounded pretty good. Just trying to make it seem more natural. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed. Just wash your hands, stay home, and I'll see you tomorrow with something else. I don't know what, but I'm probably gonna wrap up Germany this week for sure.